what makes young people crazy rave.
I'm curious what makes you so curious.
In the beginning was the beat.
Welcome to the Rave Curious Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Glazer. What are we curious about? We're curious about electronic music and the culture that surrounds it. And how do we satisfy that curiosity? We do it by talking to people who have dedicated their lives to the electronic music community, DJs, producers, promoters, and more. My guest today on the Rave Curious Podcast is Detroit's own Buzz Goree. Buzz has been playing techno about as long as there's been techno, starting in the 1980s as a high school DJ, like pretty much everybody from the original Detroit techno community. You know, Derek May, Juan Atkins, Kevin Saunderson, Eddie Fowlkes. Here's where I forget people's names and they get mad at me. But that entire scene where Detroit was born, where Detroit techno was born, was basically high school kids who were DJing backyard parties. Before there were, nightclubs, before there was, a techno scene, there was that, and Buzz was there and he witnessed all of it. Buzz is a member of Underground Resistance, the legendary techno crew that came a little bit later in the early 1990s, part of Detroit's second wave of techno. And Buzz continues to make music today. His label, Mixworks, continues to put out music by some amazing artists. Buzz continues to play regularly. He now lives in Berlin. So you might catch him at Berghain, whether behind the decks or more often than that in the crowd. Buzz has been doing this a long time, but probably more than any other DJ I know, he is in it to win it. He is out there in the clubs all the time, hanging out, loving the music. And we talk about that. And we also talked about, we talk about a whole lot of things, which is the point of listening. I'm going to stop talking and just remind you to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, Rave Curious Podcast. Subscribe on iTunes to get every episode as soon as it comes out. You know how this podcasting works. I don't need to tell you. I just need to tell you that this is the Rave Curious Podcast with Buzz Goree. Enjoy.
Myself, Mr. DJ Buzz, Berghain, and Goree.
I caught the end of that.
No.
Yeah, that's how we're starting. That's how we're starting. If you missed that, we're here with DJ producer Buzz Goree from Detroit. Thanks for coming by, Buzz.
Hello, man. How you doing?
I'm all right. So, now, Buzz, we've known each other
Too long.
Since the 90s.
Yep.
Back in Detroit, parties like I think we probably met at the Packer plant or something.
Yeah, Packer plant or Banco building.
Funny. I actually never went to a party at the Banco building. I know.
That's too bad.
I know. My youth is showing. I was just young enough. No, that's not true. I was of the age where I could have been going to the Banco parties.
I guess it was post motor.
But I was. No, we maybe met. I think probably before motor. I started going to Motor in '98.
Yeah, I knew you.
Started working there in 2000. Whatever. It's all. Yeah. It's all mess. But
we say techno bring people together. And
here we are sitting in Berlin.
Yeah.
20
years later, sipping coffee.
15, 20 years later.
Water.
But honestly, I don't know a whole lot about your background. We've hung out a lot, but I don't know where exactly you started. You were kind of you came into my world fully formed as Buzz Bang and Goree.
Well, shoot, my history goes on. Well, to give you a quick overview of history about me, how I started DJing when I was 12 years old, actually. Well, I ain't gonna say DJ. I was aspiring DJ. I was aspiring DJ really at 9 years old.
Okay.
And I came really. First time I touched a turntable, I was 12.
All right.
It just went from one stage to another. I was starting to meet people that was in the industry, but I was a young kid, and I was able to learn from certain individuals, going to parties, backyard parties in Detroit. And I would watch DJs play and watch how certain records reacted to people. And I found I kind of found my niche with it. So as years went by, I got in high school, and then I met guys that were DJs in high schools, and then I became what we would call a speaker boy, help carry equipment.
Okay.
You know, help carry equipment because we were like mobile DJs, and then from there, we were promoting parties at the same time, and you know, back in the '80s, Detroit had different DJ crews. You had Direct Drive, and we had Audio Mix, and then you had Audio Tech Sounds.
All right, now this is like the early
Yes,
80s,
this
like before
right,
any of the Detroit techno records.
Then you had Deep Space.
Okay.
You know, that was Juan and Eddie and Derek and them, but they wasn't from Detroit. They're from Bellevue.
Right.
So they came with their talents searching in Detroit for the people that were playing this type of music. So we had different kind of DJ crews in Detroit, and everybody, it was always friendly competition. You know, Deep Space against Direct Drive, Audio Mix against Direct Drive, and a lot, you know, after high school, a lot of guys kind of went to college and everything, and I stayed with it. And before you know it, house music was out, and Juan had a lot of great records out at the same time. Strange of Life had already dropped, so Derek was already on the plane, basically. And it was just basically, you know, a hobby. It was a hobby, and it's something I wanted to advance with. So I stayed with it, and it opened up a lot of doors for me over the years.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, you know, that era before anyone was putting out records, when it was like, you know, there was obviously this high school mobile DJ scene. Where did that come from? Because that was something that I think was very specific to Detroit.
Well,
you didn't have that.
Right. Well, it got birth from middle class kids. You know, parents that had, you know, worked at the plants. You know, that had a little, you know, they were living middle class, and we didn't want to listen to regular music on the radio. So you was finding guys that were going to New York or that were in record pools getting these records, and these was records that you wouldn't hear every day on the radio, and that kind of attracted me to the music. So you know, we were it was just a cliquish type of thing. You know, you had guys on the northwest side of Detroit doing it. You had guys on the west side of Detroit doing it. Then you had your guys on the east side of Detroit doing it. There was not a downtown crew back then. You had downtown kids from Cass Tech High School, but I don't think no DJs came out of Cass.
Right. So this was the era where, like, you know, in New York you had, like, you know, the Loft and Paradise Garage and stuff like that, and then, like, over in Chicago you had the Warehouse and the Music Box. But Detroit, you know, because the Music Institute came a little bit later,
right? But see,
initially were these parties? Were they, like, because there was no clubs in Detroit that matched the parallels in the other cities?
That's a good question, because people ask, like, wait a minute, if you saying high school, how were you guys in clubs? Believe it or not, back then you, they didn't encourage you to go to clubs.
I don't think they still card you in Detroit to go to clubs. They weren't carding me 10 years.
So, you know, but you know, we create our own underground. You know, we couldn't, you know, there weren't a lot of clubs in Detroit, so we would rent halls.
Okay.
You know, we would rent halls, get flyers together and rent halls, and throw parties. And that was a big party culture. In summertime, when you know how it is, you don't want to be in the club in the summertime. People would go throw backyard parties. So, for example, we would go to, like, Sherwood Forest. If people don't know Sherwood Forest, that's like a community in Detroit where a lot of mansions, historical homes are at. You know, we would throw backyard parties in that area, and that's what we did over summertime. So basically, it was like we were young promoters as well as DJs.
Okay, but doing it more like it was always mobile. It was always built into these
right.
These
we would go rent a hall and just hire soundmen.
Yeah. The other impression I get from that, and again, this was, you know, I was in middle school in the suburbs, so I had no idea this stuff was going on. I think a lot of it even happened before I moved to Detroit, because I moved from my family in '85 when I was 10 years old. But if you look at the history of like, the clubs, I guess it goes back to New York and Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those were mostly gay clubs, very, urbane, very artistic. I didn't do I get the sense that Detroit was mimicking that as well, but maybe, obviously without so
Detroit
much gay community.
Right, what Detroit was trying to clone off of what New York was doing, and to lead that, we had Ken Collier. He was our big name DJ in Detroit. He was well respected of all the big name Chicago guys, New York guys, and he catered to the underground gay community in Detroit.
Right, and his was Heaven was his club.
Right, Heavens.
Okay,
but before Heavens, Ken was playing for us too.
All right,
at certain underground parties, like he would play the Charivari parties. Mm-hmm. He would play the Snobs parties. Shabatino party. Ken would play all these high school kid parties before he decided to go play for a gay audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and I also know from that time there was, like you said, it was kind of more like a middle class, urban middle class community that was trying to do something alternate to the more rough street.
Well, Detroit radio.
People picture when they.
But Detroit radio
Detroit.
formed it all. Mm-hmm. It formed Detroit's underground because of the radio personality DJ Electronic Mojo. He shaped it all. It was him at first. He was the first to shape, as far as open up your minds to other music outside of the normal music. So he, his show was so successful. He had his listeners every night. I'm a teenager kid listening to a show every night, hearing some very abstract music. The hottest stuff that was coming out, all the latest George Clinton, Rick James releases. So he kind of he made the blueprint for Detroit's underground, in my opinion. So by him playing it, by him educating us with this music, it opened our minds up more to good music outside of mainstream music. At that time, disco was on his way out. Mm-hmm. So we would call it. So the music that was coming out was like more vocal music. Like from artists such as D Train, Patrice Rushen. Let's see. Like I said, DJ Patrice Rushen. You had there's so many artists back then. We talking 30 years ago. Patrice Rushen, D Train. You had I can't even think of no more artists right now at this time. But you had a lot of artists coming out with good music that we kind of got attached to.
Right. It was kind of like it was like funk, but more like electro funk.
Well,
early breakdance.
We were calling it progressive music. Because it was vocal music. It was just rhythmic. Let's put like this jazz music that had a little more swing to it.
Okay.
With a little bit more swing to it, and not so much funkiness, but soulfulness. There's a difference there between funk and soul.
Yeah. How would you describe that difference?
Well, funk is to me, funk is is your heart, soul is your mind.
Okay.
So it's just the two of them flows together. Yeah. So that's how I differentiate between both.
Right. And then what was the condition of Detroit at the time?
Well, it's a lot better than now, believe it or not. Well, I say a lot better than now. Now you got Detroit. It's on. 3 years ago, it was at the bottom.
Right, with the bankruptcy.
Right. We filed bankruptcy. So now they're really bringing back the downtown, which is good. But I feel back then was a lot better because it was a lot of things going on in inner city. A lot of city services still going on in inner city. We had an excellent bus system back then in the early 80s.
That's really hard to imagine.
We had an excellent bus system. You didn't, as far as where I lived at, because I'm from Northwest 7 Mile.
Okay.
And that bus ran every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes going downtown.
So that's 7 Mile and
Hamilton.
Okay.
Like 7 Mile Hamilton bus. So, you had a lot of, the parks and recreations was a lot better than it is now. There was a lot of opportunities for the kids. And back then, kids had summer jobs. City was offering summer jobs for the kids in the city. Now those services are not there anymore.
Right. So it was like, because I think the economic infrastructure at that point had pretty much already collapsed. All the white flight had already happened, but the long-term effects hadn't really corroded yet. Like you still had communities, you still had neighborhoods.
Well, people, I was home a couple of years ago, and it was during the Techno in Detroit, and I took some friends, friend of mine from Japan. I took them through Detroit, and the look that was on their face was really, I'll never forget their look. But I had to tell them that drugs did not do this to the community. From the economy crashing, did it. And they couldn't believe it, because people need to realize Detroit is ran, controlled, and governed by the auto industry. The auto industry and the auto plants. Yeah. Parts plants. So when they failed, the city fell with it. And we was ground zero when the economy crashed. Detroit was ground zero for it. Sure. So we was first to get it. Boom. And it was kind of sad to see that happen, because here it is, we're Americans. Our parents worked in them plants for many, many years. I was raised off the plant. Many of my family members were raised off the plant. And when the problem occurred 3 years ago, basically Washington said, let Detroit fall. So we was like, wow, for real? They literally said, let Detroit fall. They didn't care about the auto industry anymore. So thank God, the new president was able to get things together. But there was a big auto bailout. Right. The first Obama term. But I try not here with the music business. I try not to get into politics. I play records, not politics. So one thing I'm glad the auto industry was back up and running, because Detroit needed it. And the United States needs American cars as well. That's funny that you say you play music, not politics, because you're known, I guess, like, for people that have heard your name, it's via Underground Resistance, exactly. Which in the list of politically charged, right? People, Techno, that's like the top of the list, right? See, people always try to paint us as a militant group, like as you said, a politically charged group. That's not what we were about. We were just about the music first, and not exploiting our faces through the music. We was Mike's vision was to make sure the world gets the music cheap and consistently. So, why I say by cheap, if you ever go buy a UR record, it's never really, it's always a good price for them records. Mike don't let them records get unaffordable, because without the fans buying the records, we won't be in business. So people, the media, say, well, why you guys hide your face? We are you guys part of the Black Panther movement? Blah blah blah. I've heard it all. No, and the answer that no, we're not. We're just all about the music. And once you get it, people can't really figure us out. That they make their own illusion of what UR is. So it was a militant stance, but it was a militant stance specific regarding the music and the music. Well, it wasn't nothing militant about it. It was just about not exploiting our faces, exploit the music, not us. Okay. So that's why we wore the mask. So tell me, so how did you, at what point did you come into it? Because it's the easy history, the wiki history is Mike Banks teamed up with Jeff Mills and then Rob Hood, and they made Underground Resistance. Right. So, but there's obviously been a lot more people involved in that. How did you come to? I had started a label called Night Groove Records, and I was always a DJ since I was 12, and back in 1990 I started my label. And I didn't know. I knew what I can't say. I'm not gonna say I didn't know what I was doing. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't have a lot of global contacts. But I was able to put out a record, and Mike had heard the record, and Mike had he kind of liked the concept of what I was trying to do with the music and everything. He got in touch with me, and so we sat down and had a meeting, and he's like, man, he said, Buzz, I really like what you're doing and how you and your DJing skills, and but at that time I wasn't a techno DJ, I was a house DJ. I mean, because that's what school I come from, house school. So that time he was going through the thing with Rob and Jeff. They had just left, and he was kind of really swamped in a lot of faxes. People faxing him from all over the world. A lot of journalists coming in and talking to him about this split with him and Jeff and everything. So he asked me did I want to be the DJ, but me not knowing techno, I was like, no, I didn't know, I wasn't educated enough on techno to do the music, to be the DJ. So then I was in the group, but I wasn't a DJ. I think Al Odom was a stand-in DJ at the time.
Okay.
So Al Odom was in
T1000.
Yeah, T1000, and then during that time I got myself more familiar with techno records and everything. And then by time '92 came, I was educated on how to play techno, and then I was in Underground Resistance then.
Yeah, I think that's really funny. You bring up the fax machine, because I remember that was the only way to contact those guys.
Right.
And okay, email was around, but it wasn't ubiquitous.
Right.
But there wasn't even a phone number.
Right.
And I remember this specifically, to go off topic a little bit. In I think must have been 2000 when Jaguar hit and Rolando was the big thing, and I was working for Real Detroit Weekly at the time. We had just come out, this new alternative weekly, and in the calendar section, you pull out a couple 2-3 events and kind of highlight them and do a picture and a little write up. And they were doing a UR night at Motor with Rolando, and
I think I played as me and Rolando.
Did you play that as well? Okay.
No, did I play? I don't know. I don't know. I remember. I don't remember.
But I just remember. So the article, so they asked me to write a little, 2-3 sentences about, this is happening at Motor this weekend. So I wrote it, had my initials on it, and then I walked away. I was like, there you go. When they go to put the magazine together, there were no photos. There were no photos of Rolando. There was no photos of anyone, and you couldn't Google to find something. So they managed to find a UR logo and slapped it on, slapped it in there, okay, whatever. I get to Motor that night, the night of the party. And Linda G, who was the booker at the time,
right? I remember.
She's like, "You can't be here." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "You guys went and used their logo without permission. It's their intellectual property." I mean, this is back, pre-internet. People actually thought and I'm like, "We're just helping to bring people to the party." And she's like, "Mike's really upset." And this was before I had never met Mike. I just know, the man they call Mad Mike Banks is mad at me. And I'm just 22, 23-year-old. And I said to Linda, I'm like, "Look, man, introduce me to Mike, because I don't know what he looks like.
Right.
Introduce me to him, let me explain. I'm sure this can be worked out." And she's like, "You don't want to talk to Mike Banks. He's gonna he's gonna beat you down. Something terrible's gonna happen." And so I just I didn't leave. I basically I said I was leaving, and then I went and just found a corner of the club, and I just hung out. And if they really want to find me, they'll find me. But this is ridiculous. And but I remember that Monday or Tuesday, I was back at the Real Detroit office, and I wrote a fax. I hand wrote a fax. Addressed it to Mike, and was like, "Hey, I'm, the guy who's in the magazine used your logo. I heard you were upset about it. Please understand, it was our graphic designers. It wasn't me. I'm more than happy to talk about it. Here's my pager number. If you want to talk. I'm open.
Right.
I hope this. I think this can be resolved." And I sent off the fax. Never got a response. Just kind of went about my life.
Yeah, he really tried to keep that logo intact,
Yeah.
A lot of people try to exploit the logo for their own personal
I understand that completely. And I mean, I'm sure he's had, so many t-shirts bootlegged and all this stuff. The funny thing is, a few months later, I was then working at Motor, and Nigel Richards played. And, the next day he's old friends with Mike, and, had been selling UR records at his store in Philly.
Right.
And he's like, "Can you take me by Submerge? I want to hang out with Mike, say hi, blah, blah, blah." And I'm thinking I don't know if that's a good idea. But I didn't say anything. And so I drove Nigel to Submerge, and we sat there, And like, him and Mike, they're just catching up. They're talking about girls. They're talking about sports. They're talking like old friends. And I'm just like the driver sitting in the corner, all like, just trying to be invisible. And then I don't know how it came up, but somehow it finally came up. And I told Mike, like, yeah, I'm the guy I sent you a fax a few months ago. And he said to me, he's like, that's one of the most mature things I've ever seen anybody do in this, in this Detroit scene. And then he was all like, super cool and super nice. We've been cool ever since. So, but it's funny.
Yeah, he's a cool guy, man.
He's actually a super cool guy, But when you're called Mad Mike Banks,
yeah,
people get impressions.
Yeah, because it's been a lot of times. He's just trying to protect his brand, man. You can't blame the guy. Because there's been a lot of people out there over the years trying to exploit it for their own personal gain. It's just some of the things I've witnessed you couldn't believe. You'd be like, it's just been a lot of things happening with that logo. So he just try to keep it intact.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess so you hook up with UR.
Right.
You start playing. That was when you started going out of Detroit and playing.
Exactly.
Playing around the world.
Right.
Tell me about some of those experiences.
Well, Mike, he taught me a lot, as far as playing at a high level, playing for thousand people, And, it's just, he taught me a lot, as far as making records, what equipment to use, international business. The man just taught me a whole deal. And Mike, he's very, very, very smart person. He handpicked certain people who he wanted around him. So I was really kind of happy that he picked me because there's a lot of people wanting to work with Mike. So we started working together and became a family atmosphere. We all got really close to each other, because music is made hours in on a time. And we worked together many years, putting out records, touring, taking care of the business end, dealing with the ups and downs of this business.
Right. And that's been how long? I mean,
I was with Mike for at least close to 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and I mean through various levels of activity.
Close to 20 years. People would be like, once you're in you always you are. Mm-hmm. It's like me, Mike, Rolando, Jeff, Rob, Dex, Santi, Ray, Scourge, Mark Flash, Floyd. That's you are. Mm-hmm. That's the core. We will always be URs. We even some of us got our own labels and everything, but sometimes we all come together and play up as you are.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of brings us to a little bit what we were talking about before we started recording, where there is, there's certain producers, there's some younger producers who aren't young anymore, but people who were part of a label, part of a particular clique, and kind of all came up together. This music is very much defined by labels and crews, as far back as the DJ crews, as much as it is individuals. And then a lot of these producers, when it's time to leave that initial nest, they have a hard time differentiating themselves as individuals and as artists from this bigger thing.
Right. That's because that falls for the artist. You got to create your own identity. So if you can get out here and create your identity, then there's this business. This is your gift. Some people can't do that. Some people can only stay up on the identity, their original identity that they come from. They can't go nowhere, but they hit a brick wall. That's from to me. That's what I call being untalented.
But you've never had a case where somebody came to hear Buzz Goree DJ or met you and like expected something from you because of their expectations. To UR.
Of course, that happens all the time. That's why every time I DJ, you're going to always hear a UR record from me. Because if I'm in somebody's town, it's Buzz Goree, and most likely it's a UR for me being in the with the label for so long. So yes, I'm gonna play that record, play the UR record because they're good records.
Yeah, and you're comfortable with that. There's not this part of you that wants to break out.
But I try to play everybody's music. If your music's hot, I'm gonna drop it. Whether it's house, techno, electro. If it's hot, if it can sustain a dance floor, I'm gonna play it.
And I got to be honest with you, like I hadn't heard you DJ in probably over a decade. You know. And if it's weird. Like all my memories of you from back in Detroit were like hanging out and being around. It wasn't, I'm sure I saw you play. You might have opened for Rolando that night. You don't even remember, but there was then when you played Berghain a few months ago, and I was like, okay, I really need to go see Buzz. Right. At this point, I'm a jerk. I went all the way to Tuscany to hear you play at that farmhouse, and the cops came and we couldn't. Right. But it was like I was like, okay, like I'm definitely going to this. And I'll admit, even I had a little bit of an expectation of like almost this like, okay, this is gonna be like this like '90s like I don't know what Buzz is gonna play, but I know what Buzz is gonna play, and I do that. I admit this is a flaw of mine. I do this to lots of DJs, lots of my friends who are DJs. Like I still get that, so I can only imagine what other people do. And then when you did play, I made it through about the first hour and a half, and it was like 8 a.m, and I was dead on my feet. But I only knew like 2 of the records you played, and it still had that feeling, like it had that little smell of like '90s Detroit parties. But it wasn't just like here's all the records that everyone was playing in the '90s Detroit parties. Like I was really really happy about that.
Yeah, I tried, when I played that show, I tried to come in and play, just come in and play a solid set. I don't really play, how can I put it? I don't really play the normal type of style of music like everybody plays in that venue. Because I got a lot of people, after I played, because I played a Public Enemy record in Berghain. And that kind of gave a lot of shock to a lot of people. And I'm glad that means it worked, because that's why I played it.
Which record? Which cut?
It was Fear of a Black Planet.
Okay.
Yeah, Fear of a Black Planet, and that's kind of one of my statement records.
Right.
So and the crowd really liked it. They really liked it, and they were surprised, but it went off pretty good. So that's just tell you my style. I never played. Just what you never know what you're gonna hear when you hear from me. You never know what you're gonna get.
So yeah, and so then like, but it still definitely had that like that flavor that I don't even hear like a lot of other Detroit DJs from that time. When I hear them play now, I'm not immediately taken back to the Packer Plant in 1995. Right. Which that set did for me, even though I didn't know the record.
Well, really, them records, to tell you the truth, them records today, them records that we were playing in 95, 94, them records are too fast for these kids today. You didn't realize we was at 138, 136 BPMs back then. Now, if I was to play a record that fast, I couldn't play a record that fast. Only in certain venues.
Dude, I tried to listen to Jeff Mills live at the Liquid Room not that long ago. Yeah. Exhausting just sitting at my desk listening to it. It's so fast and hard. So I have this idea, and I'll probably never do it. So hopefully someone will hear this and maybe they'll do it. Is I want somebody to take all those great mixes from the '90s and slow them down about 4 BPM. Like just put them in the computer, slow them down. Don't change the pitch, just the tempo. Slow all those mixes down so we can listen to them again. Because, it was just ridiculously fast back then.
Yeah, it's fast and hard, man. Now it's like, you listen to the music we listen to now compared to then, it's like, wow, we were really moving fast.
I know. It just, part of me just want to be like, well,
I remember the transition. I remember the first gig I played when the tempo changed.
What was that?
It was here in Berlin about 7 years ago. I came here, hadn't been here like in a year. Came and played a party, and everybody's looking at me crazy. And I'm like, what's wrong? My friend comes and says, you're playing too fast. I'm like, what do you mean? I couldn't understand. I couldn't realize. I didn't realize the tempo had changed. That the tempo had changed. I had no idea it changed. So I was kind of surprised by it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. You really don't hear. I mean, I guess like I think places like I can't think of the name of the club now. Like Lehman Club in like northern Germany. Like there's still, but yeah, Berlin is definitely, and I think everywhere.
But I'm kind of glad that everybody slowed down, because now people can really slow down and dance and listen to the record.
Yeah.
And people last longer in the club because they're not exhausting themselves out compared to like we were doing back in '96 and everything.
This is true. And this might have to do with, a lot of this has to do with like, the longer club hours that, Berlin defines it. But at this point, that's become the norm all over the world. Like everybody wants to do these, party for 24 hours, and you can keep nodding your head if it's like 128, but at 138 your neck's gonna get sore. So like, all right, so you've been living in Berlin full time for how long?
Off and on since 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, off and on. This time I've been back for 2 years.
Right.
Berlin is my second home, but I first came here in '93.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So that 93, that would have been like when Tresor
The first Tresor,
opened?
yeah, the original Tresor. Yeah. When I first played in Germany.
And how did that compare? Like, or how did that relate? Because obviously so much has been said about the connection between Detroit and Berlin. But how did that feel for you? Like stepping off a plane in a foreign country.
Man, I was really excited, and I was kind of shocked, and I was extremely jet lagged. So so it was like I had to get used to DJing jet lag. I've never played.
I think that's actually something that is way under discussed.
Yeah.
With people like most of the time, nowadays, like I don't even know what jet lag is. You combine jet lag with all night parties, with DJ sets that start at 7 a.m. With it's just this. I honestly, I don't know how people do it year after year after year.
And back then there were no CD players. It was hauling all the records to the airport, and this we talking before the Euro.
Right.
So
yeah.
That means every city changing money, different customs. It was crazy. It was crazy.
So you've been here now. You're DJing, but you got your studio up and going.
DJ built a new studio, so I'm ready to fire off. About to release the new Mixworks 006. I'm releasing this. I'm the producer. So that's next on the horizon. Also, I'm starting a new label this summer called Hopscotch Digital label. Hopscotch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're really excited about that, because I have a lot of great producers, women producers, that's interested in producing on the label. And, the label is designed for the new generation here, young hipsters from age group 20 to 35. This new music that these kids listening to. Just an outlet for new, fresh producers, a platform for them to release their music. And we're gonna release digital first, but it is gonna be vinyl as well.
You said women producers. Is it
Yes.
specifically a female label, or it just happens to?
It's just kind of it's not specifically a female label, but I'm kind of gonna let them take the direction of the label and see what happens.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of good producers out here. I was talking to a few producers, and they're interested, and I said, hey, I figured just start another label, give them a platform, and I think I can help a lot of artists too, because Mixworks, we do bookings as well. We do bookings, artists, event coordinating. So I think I can help some artists with their book, developing new artists and handling their bookings and everything. So that's why I'm hoping Hopscotch should be a platform for all that.
And Mixworks you've actually been doing for a while.
Yes, Mixworks.
You were throwing Mixworks parties.
Yeah, Mixworks started out as a promotion company. Mixworks been existing for like 14 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was that one before, but I always remember like the Garnier party.
But a lot of people know. Do you know Adriel started Mixworks with me? It was me and Adriel.
I did not.
Yeah.
Adriel. Why am I forgetting Adriel's last name? He's gonna be so upset.
Yeah.
He's just Adriel.
Yeah, it was just Adriel. Yeah. He started Mixworks with me.
Okay.
Yeah, me and Adriel. and then I took, after he got busy with his life things for his life, and I kept it going. I took it to where it's at today,
Okay, so what is he doing now?
I think
he's around. Like he's definitely.
Yeah, I think he's been working on more event coordinating,
like more like civic stuff.
Yeah,
I just saw he was hanging out with Richard Branson for like a day when they launched.
Yeah.
And like this is the kid that used to wear the furry jacket at the door at Motor and
exactly.
introduce the DJs, club kid extraordinaire.
Exactly. He was our club kid extraordinaire. That's for sure. So that's what's going on with me for the summer of 2015. We in 2015? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Oh Jesus.
Yes.
So bringing up Adriel, and it kind of brings me back. Again, I'm going to keep coming back to like that mid to late 90s period when when I moved home from school and started hanging out, was meeting everybody, hanging out at Motor, and. So when you come back into something after being gone for a few years, and I was definitely I was a kid from Huntington Woods, I was definitely part of that that wave of suburban kids who caught on to the music through like Rich's parties and things like that. And, one impression, and this is either good nor bad. This is just absolutely my impression. The first thing you heard was there was definitely this schism between the older black Detroit techno scene and the the white suburban techno scene. You always heard about everyone was around, but it always felt a little fuzzy at that point. And I always felt like, honestly, you in particular, and I guess you and Adriel, you guys never seemed to have that. Like no one ever you never heard somebody whisper something about like, oh, well, Buzz, Buzz don't like white people. Like the way you would hear about other people now.
Right.
It's ridiculous, but at the time...
we weren't hearing it because we created the scene. It was our baby. We created it. So everybody that was in the scene was visitors. You understand? To our planet.
Sure.
So, it was the people... It was the third wave that came with the negativity. The first wave was suburbanite kids. There was never nothing, but they were accepted with open arms. Detroit downtown underground accepting them kids with open arms. The
first generation being like the Paxal guys, the Hoovars, the Houghtons.
When we were all living in 1217. That was
let's talk about 1217 a bit.
That was the first wave. 1217 was a loft I lived in back in the early 90s, and I moved there, and Blake Baxter lived like 50 feet from me. So the loft was a really huge unfinished loft. I moved there, and before you know it, one suburbanite kid moved in there. Next you know, 2 moved in there, 3 moved in there, and we were all neighbors, And I would be playing my music, and they would hear my music. And eventually, one night, one guy knocked on the door. Hey, how you doing? We like your music, and I introduced the guy. And we introduced each other, and I'm talking to the guy. It was John Williams.
Okay. Billy Bob.
Yeah, Billy Bob. We talking and everything, and he invited me down to his loft. He had turntables, so eventually I went down there, and then we got to talking, I really got to liking the guy, and then we all got really close. And then one day we were all sitting in the loft. It's like about 10 o'clock at night. We sitting there. It's like it's like a Tuesday night, winter time. We was all bored. Somebody said, "Hey, let's have a party," and we decided to have a party. One guy did the graphics. One guy did the art. Did the music. Did the equipment. One guy did the decorations, and we didn't have to pay for rent of the building because it was our apartments. And we threw parties there. Threw a party, and I think that first budget was like $50. Was the first budget, and we built it up. A series of throwing parties. We built up the budget to over $20,000 throwing parties.
I can't imagine what you do with $20,000.
Yeah, I mean, because it got kind of really out of hand where Detroit police got found out what we were doing, and they started coming in and raiding us, beating us down, beating us up, and everything. I've been through a lot throwing parties, man. Been thrown in jail, been beaten up by cops.
Yeah, I think people forget that was. that was like par for the course back then.
Yeah.
You know, I was easily at a few parties where I was never at any of the big bus, like where things got physical and weird. Yeah. I was definitely marched down some stairs, you know, a whole row of Raver Kids back then, or, you know, marched out of this warehouse and that warehouse. I remember the one big bus at the Packard plant. You know, I was on my way there. And this is a funny story. This is before I had really started getting into techno. I was still this like indie rock kid, and you know, we used to hang out at Zoots all the time. And then Tuesday, or was it Monday nights at Zoots were the ambient night. So that was like the one night all the rave kids would show up, and we knew all these rave kids. We know these rave girls because my buddy ran a Japanese toy store in Royal Oak. So we had met all the rave girls who would come in to buy the Hello Kitty stuff, and we were like, you know, we were the dorky indie rock boys, and they were the cute rave girls, and they all did kind of funny things to make money, and you know, and it was like, so we're down at Zoots one night, me and my buddy, and we literally, and it was the ambient night, it was exact, and we just showed up because our friends owned the place, and it was just our clubhouse, and we literally we were just making jokes. We're like, can I buy this on 7-inch? Like, you know, just kind of like dorky indie rock dude jokes. And we set up a little table in the corner and we put up a little sign that said, you know, kiss the indie rock boys, $1. And I don't think we really had any takers. But at some point in the night, someone's like, one of the girls gives us an invite to some party. And it wasn't the party at the Packard plant. It was the after party.
Which was at 12:17?
Maybe. I don't know. But it was basically, but we were told it was the sex party. And it's like, everyone's gonna, you know, then everyone's gonna, and everyone's gonna get on the And me and my buddy, and they're like, but to find out where it is, like, you have to come to the rave. Right. You guys don't do this. And we actually, like, you know, we would joke about how, like, no, we don't do that, and blah, blah, blah. Like, well, you're gonna come to our party if you want to come to our party. And so, like, the whole next week, me and my, it's on a Monday, and the party's on a Saturday, all week. Oh, and Adriel, who at that point was calling himself Endolphin. He's gonna get mad if he hears me say that. You know, Adriel's gay, and he was definitely being flirty with my buddy, who was this, you know, Filipino dude. And so we leave, and my buddy's like, "We're not going." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? How many? Every weekend we're like, somewhere there's an orgy, and we're not invited. We've been invited to the orgy. We're going to the fucking party." And all week I'm harassing him. And Saturday comes around, I'm like, "Get in the fucking car."
Right.
Get in the fucking car. We're going to this. We're doing this. We drive to the Packard. We get off the freeway. We turn around the corner, and we just see cop lights.
Wow.
Just like 20 cop cars. And I was like, we're going to keep driving.
Yeah, Detroit police really really raided a lot of parties, man. Really beat me up a couple of times. I've spent, long as I think I spent like a week in jail for throwing a party. Wow. Yeah.
I thought I had it bad just because I've never been to an orgy. It's all the fault of the Detroit police. But a week in jail. What did you do?
Nothing. They just threw me in 1300 Bowman, threw me in a tank, and left me there.
Wow.
Yeah. This is back in during the Coleman Young era. Just threw me in a tank, man. You know, it's just part of, you know, it's what we went through. You know, building that scene there. You know, people. It was built from blood, guts, and sweat, and tears. And I gotta ask, man, and then I'll get off the whole like race thing, but it was very, very real for that era and whatever. Do you think, because a lot of the kids at 12-17 were suburban kids, i.e. white kids. Right. Did everyone spend a week in jail, or did you were getting looked at? No. Because when the cops, show up, you're maybe a few years older than everybody else. Right. Next, argument comes out, and you know they harass you, grab you, push you. At some point, you can only take so much. You mouth off, all right, you got something to say, you going to jail. So next, you're going to jail. Okay. Then, you got to stand your ground, look cool for everybody. I don't care about going to jail. You got to stand your ground. So boom, they throw you in the tank. But it's just it's one of the stories of one of the sad stories of being involved in Detroit's underground. Not too many sad stories, but it's been a lot of stories about Detroit cops raiding these parties, man. And it kind of killed Detroit underground scene.
It amazed me. Detroit will never fail to just do lots of cities, lots of communities, lots of whatever. At some point, have various problems with various cultural phenomena. This is not exclusive thing to Detroit. But Detroit just seems to take they just arrested Shepard Fairey
Yeah.
for.
Well, it's the new Detroit. They're trying to paint a new picture for Detroit, and it's political. He's been a political scapegoat.
But they brought him there to paint a giant mural. He is New Detroit. So it's like, even Detroit's like, we're totally New Detroit. But then you arrest the guy who you brought in. I mean, they didn't bring him in. It was a private deal. But still, I can think of nothing that's going to get more, creatives to come to Detroit. And that seems to be what they're pegging their growth on at this point, is this creative wave.
I'm hoping to see what they're going to do to get the population back. So I believe Techno is going to do it. The music always bring people together. So,
yeah, but come on, the music brings people together one weekend.
No. You got to see.
In Detroit.
Right. You'd be surprised how many people moved to Detroit for that, because of that music.
I still just have this hard time. Like, I do believe, I've already seen it, and I do believe that at some point the downtown of Detroit, because you can get artisanal, hanging out at Samantha's house during the festival around the corner from Old Miami, and you can now buy artisanal ice cream for $5 a scoop.
Right, it's really about to be a different Detroit.
But there's no place to buy a $2 scoop of ice cream, and most of the population can't. I've said it. There's no better way to say it. Like 100,000, it's what, 700,000 people in Detroit. Yeah. I don't see how 50,000 hipsters or 100,000 hipsters are going to teach that many people how to read. Detroit has so many bigger problems, and we're not supposed to sit here and talk about the issue of Detroit. But if you bring up the notion that Techno could save it, and you're not the only one. Dimitri from Tresor has been back and forth to Detroit a lot. He's consulting about urban renewal. He's talking about opening a venue there. But people in Detroit still want to go to sports bars, or people around Detroit, because nobody's in Detroit.
It's because Detroiters love big screen TVs. Yeah. The music's definitely has brought a lot of people to the city. I think what's need to happen is once they change the 2:00 cutoff time, if they change that, then the population will come back.
That is huge.
But right now, I don't see the population coming back because it's a blue collar town. It's a blue collar town, meaning because the auto industry runs and controls it, and that's just the bed everybody lay in.
And art, creativity, creative class, whatever, will not match. Will not fill that big of a space.
No.
You will never need more designers than you need factory workers.
Well, Detroit, you have to look. It can happen. They were there before they left. They left right after the riot. So maybe another 20 years they'll be back. Who knows?
All of them selling $5 scoops of ice cream,
right.
To each other.
One thing, history cannot can get changed. How this music between Detroit techno and the Motown sound, Detroit will always be on the map musically.
Right. And look, I don't mean to be completely
no,
negative and
no, it's not.
Bag on Detroit, but I part of me looks at what's happening in Detroit now, and part of me I'm way out of that demographic. Well, the people who are coming to Detroit, and people who are improving Detroit, are substantially younger, which is fine. That's who has to do it, But a part of me feels like I couldn't have that Detroit if I wanted to, because I'm 10, 15 years older than everybody else there, within the creative community, and also it's just I had my time there. I did my time. I did my time when it was pretty shittier than it is now.
Right. We did our time there when it was at its lowest. We were there. Just because some people are like, why did you leave? I'm like, hey, I've been here all my life. I was here till it failed. I want something different now.
Yeah.
But now it's on the comeback now. So we're waiting to see. They've been doing a lot of construction there, a lot of new good things. A lot of new clubs is opening up. A lot of new techno clubs opening up. Tresor is about to open up a club there, like you mentioned. You are doing big things. A lot of new labels is jumping off there. A lot of new music's coming out there.
So what's going on with you? What's you are doing? Can you talk about it?
Well, UR is always right now. They're touring. They're doing a lot of touring right now. And a couple of DJs are out touring, and some new music will be out this fall.
Okay.
Right. It's summertime usually, and you are in summertime. Mike's playing baseball and the DJs are touring.
Mm-hmm.
Every summer. That's how it goes.
So, and I mean, I trust top of the list people I want to talk to for this is Mike. And actually, what I actually want to talk to Mike about. So I'm going to ask you about it a little bit because I'm fascinated by this. Mm-hmm. I learned something. I was not the festival this year, but the festival last year. We did an interview. We got Carl Craig and Carl Cox together to have a conversation, and we ended up doing it at Submerge, in the kind of techno museum upstairs, and then took it down to the record store. And two things that struck me. As you're going through the museum, and it's all the old magazine covers and the old 808s and 909s, and just kind of the memorabilia from the original Detroit techno era.
Right.
You get to this one cabinet, and there's two things. One is a picture of a badass purple muscle car. And there's also, I don't know if it's the same cabinet, it might be a different cabinet, but there's some Vietnam era stuff, some military photos, and so it's kind of two things. But I want to talk to Mike about, because Carl Cox sees the car, they start talking about cars. He's a huge car guy. Mike's a huge car guy.
Right.
They start going off. I didn't realize Mike's talking about how that car was called the Punisher, which is they named the UR record after, and he used to fund some of those early records by street racing that car.
And racing.
I don't know how I had never heard that story until a year ago.
Yeah.
So
and Mike used to go fast. Really fast. When I met Mike, I used to race, and I thought I was going fast. So he showed me his race car.
Okay, so you were in that scene as well.
Yeah, I mean we Detroiters cars. That's
what was your ride?
Mustangs.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought I was going fast. When I saw Mike's race car, I was like, oh, let me shut up, because he's really going fast. So yeah, we always had a lot of things in common. He was in the cars, I was in the cars. He was in. We knew a lot of the same people. And of course, we both love music, and we've been close friends ever since.
And the other thing I want to talk to him about, and I was very much blind to this until recently, but the notion that there's, in that late 70s Detroit scene that, that birthed the techno scene as everyone knows it, there was a lot of veterans. I mean, because the Vietnam War was just over at that point. And I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know who those people were in those photos, but obviously they were significant.
Well, Mike's brother was in the Vietnam War.
Okay.
That was his brother Ty.
Okay. And did he have a connection to techno, or was he just supporting his brother?
Well, I mean, just supporting his brother. That was the reason why Mike those memorabilia are in there.
Okay.
That are in the exhibit like that, because Mike's brother was in the Vietnam War. Also, Mike's father is from the military.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and
Mike's from a military family.
Okay. Yeah. See, I didn't know that. And also, I mean, Rick Davis from Cybertron was in the military. So I think that's something that there's such this kind of history of rock and roll that has these you see the history where it's the Vietnam era and all that, and that influenced this rock and that rock. But I'm curious to see if there's a connection, explore if there's a connection to to more of the other stuff. So where are we at? We're been talking for almost an hour already.
Oh wow! See how time go by when you're talking techno.
That's also how time goes. Time goes by quick when you're listening to techno. That's why we can hang out in the club for 12 hours at a time.
Right.
It's got hot. It's hot in here.
So this is the end of the great interview.
I guess so. Unless there's anything else you want to make sure we mention. I don't. Again, I'm not 100% sure when this is coming out. So
okay.
Well, otherwise I'd ask what are your DJ dates? But what.
Well, next DJ. Oh. Well,
no, it doesn't matter because it won't be out in time.
Thanks for supporting Mixworks, and hopefully see you guys on the dance floor soon.
Cool, man. Thanks for coming through, Buzz.
Peace and stay underground.
That's it for this episode of the Rave Curious Podcast. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more conversations with key players in the electronic music community. If you like what you heard on this podcast, let us know. You can give us a shout on Twitter at Rave Curious. You can also like us on Facebook, Rave Curious Podcast. And of course, subscribe on iTunes to make sure you never miss an episode. That's it. Thanks for listening.